Story 1. The Unlocked Door. In the blistering heat of a Chandler, Arizona summer, 17-year-old Ethan Matthews was living the dream of every teenage gamer. An empty house, a high-speed internet connection, and endless hours to dominate Call of Duty. Black Ops. His parents, frequent travelers, had left him alone for the weekend, entrusting him with a grocery list and a wad of cash to keep the household running. Ethan, lanky and perpetually glued to his gaming rig, was in his element, his room aglow with the neon blue of LED wall lights, the hum of his PC fan a constant companion. The day had started routinely enough. After submitting a school paper and braving the scorching parking lot of Whole Foods in his beat-up Toyota Camry, Ethan found himself in an odd encounter at the checkout line. A man, middle-aged, wiry, with an unsettlingly intense gaze, struck up a conversation about the jar of organic peanut butter in Ethan's cart. His comments were innocuous at first, but his persistence was unnerving, following Ethan to the bagging area and prattling on as if they were old friends. Ethan, polite but uneasy, offered a curt, "Have a good one," before escaping to his car, the man's eyes lingering on him as he loaded his trunk. Back home, the groceries stowed away, Ethan settled into his gaming chair, the familiar chaos of Call of Duty washing away the day's oddities. His friend Johnny joined him online, their banter echoing through Ethan's noise-canceling Logitech headset as they racked up kills in team deathmatch. Hours melted away, the outside world fading into insignificance. But as the night deepened, a subtle unease began to creep in. It started with a sound, a faint thump from upstairs while Ethan was downstairs in the kitchen, boiling pasta for a late dinner. The house was old, prone to creaks and groans. But this was different, heavier, almost deliberate. Ethan froze, fork halfway to his mouth, straining to listen. Nothing followed, but the silence felt charged, oppressive. Shaking it off as paranoia, he locked the front door, a precaution he rarely bothered with in their quiet, upscale neighborhood, and returned to his meal. Back in his room, Ethan rejoined Johnny for another round of gaming, but the earlier sound lingered in his mind. His room, bathed in blue light, felt like a sanctuary, yet the open door to the dark hallway beyond seemed to pulse with an unspoken threat. He glanced at it occasionally, half expecting to see a shadow move. During a lull between matches as Johnny stepped away, Ethan's gaze drifted to the doorway again. The hallway was pitch black, save for a faint glow from a nightlight. But something was off. The narrow gap between the door and the frame, previously an impenetrable void, now revealed a sliver of the hallway's dim light. A chill ran down Ethan's spine. Had the door moved? His heart quickened as he spun his chair around. And there, on his bed, sat a man. Not just any man, the man from Whole Foods. His posture was unnaturally rigid, hands resting on his thighs, a grotesque parody of calm. His face, illuminated by the blue glow, wore a faint, eerie smile, as if he'd been waiting for Ethan all along. Ethan's scream tore through the room as he scrambled onto his desk, knocking over his monitor and scattering peripherals. "What do you want?" he shouted, his voice cracking with terror. The man's smile widened, revealing teeth that glinted unnaturally in the light. He said nothing, his silence more terrifying than any response. Ethan bolted from the room, his bare feet pounding the hardwood floor as he raced down the hallway. Halfway to the stairs, he stopped, heart hammering, and looked back. The man had risen, his silhouette filling the doorway, his movements slow and deliberate. "What do you want?" Ethan yelled again, his voice trembling. The man's head tilted, and in a low, halting voice, he said, "Can I play too?" The words were childlike, almost plaintive, but they sent a wave of dread through Ethan. "How did you get in?" he demanded, backing toward the stairs. The man took a step forward, pointing downward, toward the front door Ethan had left unlocked for hours. Panic surged. Ethan sprinted downstairs, grabbing a kitchen knife and the landline phone. "You need to leave. I'm calling 911, he screamed, his voice echoing in the empty house. Footsteps descended the stairs, slow and measured, and Ethan's blood ran cold as the man appeared in the kitchen doorway. His eyes locked onto Ethan's, unblinking, and then, without a word, he turned and walked out the front door. Ethan slammed it shut, locking it with trembling hands, and sank to the floor, clutching the phone. He called his parents, his voice shaking as he recounted the ordeal. His mother's concern quickly turned to fury, her voice sharp as she handed the phone to his father. "Check the house," his dad instructed. "Make sure nothing's missing." Ethan scoured every room, his knife still in hand, but nothing was out of place. The man hadn't taken anything, hadn't broken anything, except Ethan's sense of safety. Days later, Ethan learned from a neighbor's security camera that the man had been lurking in the neighborhood for hours before entering the house. The police had no leads. He'd vanished into the night. But the image of him sitting on Ethan's bed, watching through the crack in the door, haunted him. Every creak of the house, every shadow in the hallway, became a reminder that safety was an illusion, and some doors, once left unlocked, could never be fully secured again. Story 2. The girl who wasn't Joey Carter was 13, awkward, and desperately trying to navigate the treacherous waters of middle school in upstate New York. It was 2010, a time when the world felt both impossibly vast and claustrophobically small. At school, Joey was outgoing enough, with a tight-knit group of friends and a knack for blending in. But when it came to girls, he was hopelessly out of his depth, tongue-tied and paralyzed by the sudden shift from playground taunts to the bewildering allure of crushes. His friends boasted of their conquests, likely exaggerated, but the pressure was real, and Joey felt it keenly. Gaming was his escape, a realm where he could be fearless. His bedroom, cluttered with posters of Grand Theft Auto 4 and Call of Duty, was his fortress, his aging PC, and Xbox 360, his weapons of choice. But his true obsession was Ganu, a sprawling MMORPG, where he spent hours slaying monsters, leveling up, and forging alliances in a vibrant online community. It was in this digital world that Joey met Medusa. She appeared one evening in a bustling in-game town, her high-level character decked out in rare armor. A private message popped up. "Nice sword. Want to party up?" Joey, flattered by the attention from a skilled player, agreed, and thus began a friendship that would consume his nights. Medusa was witty, engaging, and seemed genuinely interested in him. They teamed up regularly, sharing experience points and trading stories as they battled through Ganu's perilous landscapes. She knew his age, his town, even details about his family, and she reciprocated, revealing her name, Teresa, and claiming to be 15, living an hour away in another New York town. Their chats grew more personal, veering into flirtatious territory. Joey, who had never so much as held a girl's hand, felt a thrill he couldn't quite name. Teresa sent him a photo, a pretty girl with dark hair and a shy smile, and Joey, emboldened, sent one back, a cringeworthy selfie that made him wince even as he hit send. She called him cute, and Joey's heart soared. They began texting via an app on his iPod Touch, their conversations stretching late into the night, filled with dreams of meeting in person. The opportunity came when Joey's parents announced a weekend trip to the Hamptons, leaving him and his 18-year-old brother Nate home alone. Joey, desperate for privacy, convinced Nate to spend Saturday night out with friends. He gave Teresa his address, his nerves a tangled mess of excitement and dread. She promised to arrive that evening, though she was vague about the time, mentioning her sister's friends could drive her. Joey spent the day in a frenzy, cleaning his room, rehearsing conversation starters, and checking his reflection obsessively. As dust settled, Joey's anticipation turned to anxiety. A message from Teresa, "I'm here," sent him racing to the front door. Peering through the peephole, he saw nothing but the empty street. "Come out to the front," she texted. Stepping onto the porch, Joey scanned the quiet neighborhood, but it was deserted. Confused, he messaged her back, and she replied, "Wrong house, give me a sec." The oddity of it nagged at him, but he brushed it aside, retreating to the living room to wait. Another message came, "I'm here. Come outside." Joey hesitated, then texted, "Ring the bell so I know it's you." The doorbell chimed and his pulse spiked. He approached the door, looked through the peephole, and saw nothing. "Teresa," he called, his voice trembling. A hand reached toward the door, knocking softly. "Teresa," he said again, pressing his eye to the peephole. The world seemed to collapse as a bald, diminutive man stepped into view, his face pale and unsettlingly eager. "Hey, Joey," he said through the door, his voice low and deliberate. "It's Medusa from Ganu. I just want to talk." Joey stumbled back, his hands over his mouth, horror washing over him. The girl he'd confided in, flirted with, dreamed about, was a lie. A grown man who'd manipulated him for weeks. The doorbell rang again, insistent, and Joey fled to his bedroom, locking the door and clutching the house phone. He called Nate, who didn't answer, as the man's messages flooded his app, pleading to talk, claiming he'd lied for a reason. From his window, Joey saw the man in the side yard, peering through the glass, knocking softly. "We have a connection," he said, his voice muffled but chilling. "We could be friends." Joey's fear turned to desperation. He called Nate again, and this time his brother answered. "Please come home," Joey begged, explaining the horrifying truth. Nate, furious, promised to return with his friends. As Joey hid in his parents' bedroom, the man's messages grew frantic. Headlights swept across the house as Nate and his friends arrived, their shouts echoing outside. Joey crept to the front door, watching as Nate and 3 burly teenagers confronted the man. "You sick freak," Nate roared, while the man stammered about teaching Joey a lesson about online strangers. Joey, emboldened, called out, "Then why'd you say we could be friends?" The man had no answer. Nate's friends shoved him, and as he fled to his car, Nate kicked in a taillight, a rock shattering the rear window. The man sped off, leaving Joey shaken but grateful. Nate and his friends stayed the night, their presence a shield against the lingering fear. Joey never played Ganu again, the game tainted by the betrayal. The realization that he'd poured his heart out to a predator haunted him, a stark reminder of the dangers lurking behind the screen. Story 3. The Apex Predator. Luke Ramsey was 19, a college freshman who'd just sworn off Fortnite after one too many frustrating matches. It was May 2021, and the Battle Royale craze was waning. But Luke's friend Brandon had a new obsession: Apex Legends. Luke, who dabbled in the game when it launched but never mastered it, agreed to give it another shot. Updating the game on his PC, he logged in, his stats a grim reminder of his novice status. Pathfinder and Bloodhound were his only legends, and his kill-death ratio was abysmal. Luke's setup was modest but effective. A corner desk in his family's living room, a high-end gaming headset that drowned out the world, and a monitor that bathed the room in a cold glow. His parents were out celebrating a belated anniversary, and his younger brother was at a friend's house, leaving Luke alone in their suburban home. The solitude was perfect for gaming, and he and Brandon dove into Apex, their voice chat filled with laughter and strategy. The night was going well until Brandon's tone shifted. "Dude, what the hell?" he said, his voice tense. "I just got a random text." Luke, mid-match, barely registered it. "What's it say?" he asked, distracted by an enemy squad. Brandon read the message aloud. "Look out the window." "Don't look out the window." Luke chuckled, assuming it was a prank. "There's nothing there, man," he said. But Brandon's insistence, "Look out your window," made him pause. The living room had 5 windows, their blinds half drawn, casting slatted shadows across the floor. Luke's eyes darted from one to another, a flicker of unease growing. At the smallest window, tucked behind the couch, he saw it. A man standing outside, his back to the glass, motionless in the moonlight. Luke's breath caught, but he rationalized it. Maybe a neighbor, lost or drunk. He put his headset back on, trying to focus on the game. Brandon's voice crackled through again. "Luke, I'm not screwing with you. There's someone outside your window." Brandon's panic spiked. "He just took a picture of you at the window, looking clueless." Luke's heart stopped. "What the hell?" he whispered, ripping off his headset. He grabbed his phone, but its battery was at 1%, useless. Brandon's voice came through the headset again, but it wasn't Brandon. A deep, unfamiliar voice growled, "Come outside right now or I'll come in." Luke spun toward the window. The man was facing him now, his face a grotesque mask of rage, dark red, his bloodied fist pounding the glass. Cracks spiderwebbed across it, and Luke's panic surged. He scrambled to the kitchen, grabbing a knife, but the window shattered, glass raining onto the floor. The man began to crawl through, his movements jerky, almost inhuman. Luke sprinted upstairs, clutching the cordless phone, and dialed 911. "There's a man breaking into my house," he gasped, describing the intruder's bloodied hands and frenzied demeanor. He locked himself in his parents' bathroom, the only upstairs room with a lock, and crouched in the dark, the knife trembling in his hand. Footsteps thudded up the stairs, heavy and deliberate, and Luke's breath came in shallow gasps. The man reached the bedroom, his presence a palpable weight. Luke opened a drawer, searching for anything to use as a weapon, but the noise betrayed him. The footsteps stopped, then surged toward the bathroom. Just as the door rattled, sirens wailed outside. Luke's heart leapt. Salvation. The man cursed, his footsteps retreating, and Luke heard him flee the house. Bursting from the bathroom, Luke ran outside, where police were already cuffing the intruder, his bloodied wrists staining the pavement. Later, Luke pieced together the chilling truth. Hours earlier, he'd killed the man in an Apex match, taunting him in the heat of victory. Somehow the man had tracked Luke's address and Brandon's number, his rage over a virtual defeat spiraling into real-world violence. The police stayed through the night, their presence a fragile comfort. The man was charged with aggravated burglary, but the encounter left Luke scarred, the boundary between game and reality forever blurred.